Well, hello, friends. Kirsten here. And Clive has decided it's very important for him to attend the beginning of today's episode recording. We're just going to go with it because he's the best one. Cliver Biver. This is my toothless terrier for anyone listening or watching. And oh, now my face is wet. Okay. Today we're going to be talking about my trip to London that I took last month with no plan. Why I want to share this with you is because what I practiced for these 4 days were specific decision making skills for a former anxious overthinker to not spin out and not burn my brain out with every single decision and not have regrets and still enjoy my time there. So, this episode is going to be useful, yes, if you are planning a trip, but also if you're a person who really wants to feel like they have a solid system for decision making in place. You don't have to be going on a trip to get useful stuff out of this episode. This is the Overthinker's Guide to Not Over Planning, period. I'm going to share with you the things that made this a success, and they're going to be applicable in many different areas of life, not just planning a trip. You're also going to be able to use things from this episode to still create a plan. I am not here waving a flag that says, I don't want anyone to have an itinerary for any of the trips they take. I love an itinerary, and all the itineraries I make are color coded. It's very special. But as a professional planner, I used to be a theater stage manager. Planning and scheduling was my literal job. And now, as a professional organizer of thoughts, I wanted to make sure that even though I love a delicious plan, I'm not dependent on it. We're always trying to look for how can I get the balance, right? How can we get the best of all worlds? How can we love efficiency and a well thought out plan and appreciate our past selves for thinking ahead? And we want to know I'm going to be okay if stuff doesn't go to plan, if the plan has to change. We don't want our happiness and decision confidence to be reliant on everything going according to plan. We don't want to only be able to feel good about our choices if we have to pretend like we're able to be in control of every single thing, because we know how that works out in real life, don't we? So let me give you a little context, and then we're going to talk about how did this go? How did the experiment work? And what do I think you can take away from it? So for context, this was a trip that I took in between my home in Los Angeles and meeting my husband in Cape Town, where he was working. Well, actually, first we met in Hoedspruit, a little east of Johannesburg. The trip from Los Angeles to South Africa is mighty. It's like 25 hours. And I wanted to make the most of my time when I got there. I didn't want to have to spend 3 days recovering from travel because I was landing right at the beginning of one of his only weekends off. So what I decided to do was have a little stopover, recover from that chunk of the travel, get used to the time change. So I was clear that this was an experiment I wanted to run. I thought it would be useful. There was a time in my life I would literally not have been able to sleep in my own skin, knowing I was going somewhere without a plan. And there was a time in my life when I would find myself on that trip and be paralyzed and panicking in the moment I was facing a decision of what do I do now? What do I do with my day? What do I do next? I would be so anxious about making the wrong choice. I would be so worried about regretting it later, about what I did and didn't do. I would be so distracted by what I hadn't planned for 2, 3, 4 hours from now that I wouldn't pay attention at all to what I was doing. I would beat myself up for coming upon something that, oh, if only I had planned in advance, I would be able to do this now, but I didn't. So time for a shame spiral. And I know if you're living in anxious overthinker world or fear of regret, habit land, or a lifelong pattern of self-judgment, this is the kind of thing that can show up day after day after day because you're faced with decisions that you might regret or could beat yourself up for, or are going to be distracted during because you're not sure if you should have done something else. And when you add that up day after day after day, that creates a very exhausting life experience. That's how we lose days and weeks and months of our lives to this kind of mental chaos and distracted busyness. We don't feel like we were present for a lot of that time. We don't feel confident and secure in a lot of the choices we made. And here we are expected to move forward with the rest of our lives with that same decision-making system in place. So that's the experiment I knew this was a prime opportunity for. Here's one thing that set me up for success in this experiment from the get go. And I want you to use it for whatever situation it's going to be useful in your life. I established a clear intention from the beginning. I talked to myself a lot during these decision making sessions, but I really had to be clear with myself and all the mind minions around the committee table in my head. Here's what this trip is for, and here is what it is not for. Here's how we landed on London. There were a few different layover points in the world I could choose to create this buffer. Germany, Paris, and London. And I've actually been to London once before. So right away, opportunities to overthink and get overexcited and overwhelmed were abundant. But I decided on London because I was clear from the get-go what is the purpose of why we're doing this. The purpose was so that I could maximize my time in South Africa. So this was supposed to be a restorative, easy, still fun trip. This was not a trip that I wanted to feel the pressure from myself to wake up at the crack of dawn and hit the streets and see all the things and do all the stuff and then hit the pillow at night exhausted but full of juicy new life experiences. That was not the trip I was trying to have because it would not serve the purpose of rest up. And that made the choice really easy. We're not going to go to Paris. We've never been to France. We don't speak the language. You are going to have to work really hard that trip. Work worth doing? Absolutely. But not the point of this trip. Same thing with Germany. So I was like, you know what? You are a pretty big Harry Potter nerd, Kirsten. Why don't you go to London, get tickets to see the 2-part Harry Potter show at the Palace Theater? And that is the foundation of your trip. What if we just build it around that? And you have a guaranteed thing you're going to do and enjoy, which I did. And we don't have to overcomplicate it. So that's how I landed on London. And that's how I picked my hotel. And that's how I picked the flights. I honestly did base all of it around the Harry Potter show. And I'm not sorry. So what your takeaway from that can be is finding anchors like this for yourself and defining them on your terms makes decision making easier. I'm going to make the Harry Potter show the anchor that will make other decisions easier. I want to stay walking distance from that theater. Great. I want a plane ticket that allows for that experience to be unrushed. Great. That was the first thing. So let me recap. First, I set the intention that made other decisions easier. Here's the purpose of the trip. That means here's how we're going to make decisions. And here's what it means we're not going to do. At one point, because I've only been to Scotland for 24 hours in my life and I am so dying to go back. But at one point I was like, oh my gosh, you're going to be so close. You could hop on a train, go all the way up and see some more stuff and find some castles and da, da, da. And then we quickly came back, we being me and my mind committee, we quickly came back to that's going to be not the point. Would it be great? Absolutely. But would it be fulfilling the point of this trip? No. Too much work, too much running around. And that set me up for some more decisions in advance that I made before I even got on the plane that set me up for success. So this is, I don't know where we're at. Helpful point number 3. I think helpful point number 1 was set the intention. So we know what's the point, what are our guiding principles for making any choices from here. Helpful thing number 2, defining your own anchors, really setting some containers around decisions because I didn't want to research every single hotel in every single borough of London. That was not interesting to me. So I needed a way to contain, okay, where am I going to look? Walking distance from the theater. Great. So if you find yourself spreading out in too many directions and you're getting overwhelmed and spending too much time on a decision, find your anchors, find your defining factors, contain it in some way. And now helpful thing number 3 is make decisions in advance, otherwise known as agreements with yourself. I'm going to invite you to do some more talking to yourself, but you're going to thank me. So I made some decisions in advance so I could help my future self out, knowing what do we do? How do we do today? They're really simple, but they're very effective. One of them was, I am not going to have regrets. I'm going to slow down and say that again so you know this decision is available to you. Instead of waiting to find out after your trip or halfway through your trip or on the other side of whatever experience you are going into in your life right now, instead of waiting to find out if you have regrets, my vote and professional recommendation is to decide in advance that you won't. I already hear some mind committee members raising their hands and saying, wait a minute, though, what if we do have regrets? Are we supposed to invalidate those feelings and gaslight ourselves? No, we are never actually supposed to do that. So here's your friendly reminder that that's not what I'm saying. I am saying if you go into an experience with the mindset that I hope I don't have any regrets, I guess I'll find out if I do, you will have a very different experience than if you walk in with the mindset of, I am not going to have regrets. Proceed with the good time. And if you've never tried that, I suggest you give it a try. So I decided that in advance. I decided we are not open to questioning, was this the right move? Am I disappointed that I didn't do more? Should I have tried to see more things or go more places or go somewhere new? I decided in advance we were not going to be holding any press conferences, entertaining any of those questions. Another thing I decided in advance is that I was going to decide what I wanted to do each day based on the weather and how my body felt. Remember, my big goal was to feel rested. I don't know how many hours it was from London to Hoodspite, but I think it was at least 13. And we were going from the plane straight to a 3-hour game drive. I needed to be mentally sharp so that I could, enjoy the elephants, etc. So this was my decision in advance. You're not going to set yourself up to have tickets to anything or have to show up to anything at a specific time. You're not going to do that for anything except this Harry Potter show. You're going to look at the weather every day, and then you're going to assess how you feel and then decide where you want to go. So the point here with these decisions in advance is the fewer open loops you leave, the less opportunities you'll give your future self to spin out. It felt like I was laying a helpful groundwork, and just these few loops closed, freed future me up to make a choice and just trust it. So then, to help future me not get overwhelmed with options, what I did was just ask my friend who used to live in London, what are your thoughts? What strong opinions do you have? What enthusiastic suggestions do you have? And I just saved them on my Google Maps. I wasn't asking her to plan an itinerary. I wasn't asking her for any walking maps of any neighborhoods. I literally just was like, what are your thoughts that come to mind? I didn't want to over research, over plan. I was trying to find that sweet spot of what's going to help future me in the hotel, being like, okay, I have the entire day. What am I going to do? So I just wanted to set her up, me up, with a light sprinkling of options, like a very loose menu to choose from. So the takeaway there is helpful thing. What are we on? Number 4 or 5? You can think about what will make future me's decisions easier. Now, there are a couple things that I did real time, hour to hour, while I was in London implementing this experiment that I want to point out because they, again, were super helpful. One thing I did will be so surprising to you, but I'm going to be honest. I did talk to myself post decision. Here's what I mean. When we made the decision, we were like, all right, it's going to be sunny. We're going to take this bus to this stop, get a coffee, and then wander through Regent's Park. Great little loose plan. I said that to myself out loud. I affirmed my decision to myself so that all of the Mind Committee members were on the same page about, okay, the time for option exploring is closed. That doesn't mean the time for inspiration is closed. We're not going to stop ourselves from seeing something and following that intuition if that's where we're called to go. But we're not going to spend the next 2 hours questioning, is this what we should be doing? Should we have done something else? We are now all going to come together and agree this is what we're doing. I cannot overstate the impact this has on your ability to be present and effectively implement a decision / truly enjoy a moment. The reason I'm phrasing it that clunkily is because, yes, I want you to enjoy your vacation. So steal this tactic. And before you commit to spending the next 2 hours window shopping and having lunch in this neighborhood, tell yourself this is what we're going to do and it's going to be amazing. If there's any risk of mind minions popping up, being like, oh my God, should we have done this other thing? Should we have gone on that tour? Is this the best use of our time? If there's any risk of that, affirm your decision after you make it before you get into it. But it also helps if you commit to, say, using a particular template for a presentation at work. If there's a risk of you getting 3/4 of the way through that presentation, constantly questioning, wait, is this the best template? Should we be using something else? You are not setting yourself up to efficiently implement that choice. You are not letting yourself make the most of that decision and do your best work because part of your energy and part of your attention are dedicated to questioning your decision. People get nervous a lot of the time when I talk about this that they're going to miss things. Like if they really commit to a decision to use the template for the presentation or explore this neighborhood, that they're not going to be able to hear from themselves a true opinion about, oh, actually, this template doesn't have what we need. I don't think you're at as much risk of not being able to hear your own preferences and intuition as you think you are. Now, if this is a lifelong problem and you're constantly struggling to trust yourself and hear yourself more, then yeah, let's work together so we can solve that problem. But if this is part of your hesitation to really commit to a choice, I want to lovingly invite you to try committing to the choice and see what happens. My guess is if you end up wanting to change course halfway through, you will, and it will be fine. Okay, so helpful thing 5 or 6, wherever we are. The other thing that I did mid decision making, like day to day, hour to hour, I found really helpful was giving myself parameters in the couple moments that I really did find myself not knowing what I wanted to do. Was one night in particular, I remember where I just was like, I don't know. I can't tell how tired I am. I can't tell if I want to go out and eat by myself or if I really don't care and I just want to order room service. I was like, I actually can't tell what I want. Now, this is a moment when anxious overthinking can bloom. It's like the rains have fallen down, and now it's like, great, it's my season. I'm going to grow weeds everywhere. And you're going to be in a panic and watch 2 hours go by while you just don't make a decision. This is not what we want. In that moment, what I did was recognize, oh, you don't actually know what you want to do. I saw the option to kind of just force a decision. You can always be like, well, I don't know what I want, so I'm going to make myself decide. But that actually didn't feel like what I wanted to do. I also really didn't want to burn 2.5 hours just being like, I don't know. I could do this. I don't know. So what I did was I just set up a little perimeter. Let's just give ourselves like 20 minutes to make this decision. And then I let myself walk around the neighborhood of my hotel. I did this because I wanted to get a feel for how it felt to be outside. This is one of the benefits of getting to know your own decision making. I know personally for myself, if I find myself in one of these stuck places where I'm like, I actually don't know what I want to do, the worst thing I can do that guarantees I'm going to burn a lot of time is stay put. Like stay seated and just let my mind bounce around between options. That is not my personal shortcut to a decision I feel really good about. As soon as I recognized, oh, I don't know what I want to do here, and I don't want to force a decision, I was like, all right, let's get on our feet. Let's just walk around 5 or 10 minutes and let's see if we feel like, yeah, I want to be out. Let's see if we pass a restaurant that's really calling to us. After about 10 minutes of walking around, I still felt kind of meh about committing to a place and like going and sitting down and having the whole thing. And the next helpful thing I did is let the meh be a no. This is a place where overthinkers really get in their own ways because they don't let meh or I don't really feel enthusiastic about that or I don't feel a strong yes. They don't let that just be a no. Sometimes that's okay. Sometimes you want to keep the door of a meh open, but I also want you to know you can close the door if that's what's best for you in a situation. In this situation, I was like on a clock, wanted to get some food some way or another. The parameters I set up for myself, if you don't feel a hell yes about staying out, let's just call it a no and let's get some room service. And then let's decide we're not going to regret it. So again, whether you're planning a trip or just looking at what to do with an afternoon on a weekend, or whether you are building the website for your business, you can look at what opportunities do I have to get lost in overthinking or overwhelmed by options or paralyzed by the fear of regretting any wrong choice. Set yourself up to make faster choices with less drama, less friction, and feel genuinely better about them using these tactics. Use whatever situation is coming up this week, this month, this summer. Practice where you don't want to overplan. Or if you don't have the luxury of planning, Sometimes things take us by surprise, and life does not leave us a lot of runway to make a detailed, thorough plan. So, in those cases, too, use the tactics that are going to help you know your directives from yourself from the get go. What's the point? What's not the point? Identify the decisions you can make in advance about what you're going to do, what you're not going to do, how you're going to make decisions, if you're going to regret anything, what you're going to make anything mean or not. Find containers to limit options. Affirm your choices out loud with yourself so that you and all your mind minions are on the same page about what loops are closed and what is no longer open for renegotiation. And then define any parameters. If you really find yourself stuck where you're like, I actually don't know what I want to do. Yes, you always have the option to force a decision, but if that's not what you want to do, give yourself any parameters so that you can take one step at a time forward and give yourself a way to a decision. All of this that we're talking about today is rooted in a lot of the fundamentals of decision mastery. The idea that you decide your choices are right. The idea that you prioritize what you truly want, even if that's not what you end up going with in your ultimate decision. The idea that your opinion about your choices is the most important one. Do I care if anyone has opinions about how I use my time? Absolutely not. Am I asking for any feedback? No. Now, I'm fully aware that what I'm talking about is a solo trip that didn't involve anyone else. And I know if you're planning a trip with your family or friends, or you're delivering a presentation that is super high stakes at work and other people's opinions might come into play more in your decision making. But this is why these things are fundamentals. When you approach your decision making as if what you want matters and your opinion matters most, it lets you operate with a level of self-trust. It lets you be confident in your point of view, even if you remain open to feedback and you do base some decisions on how they will affect other people. My hope in this episode and in the podcast in general is that you're always feeding these fundamentals. You're always deepening your sense of trust in yourself, trust in your decision making. And I hope today was a fun look at implementing the fundamentals in this very specific context. And I want to remind you, we can work together on these habits if this is stuff you really want to get better at for life. These are the exact kind of things we would bring up in coaching conversations to make sure that you feel really good about your choices. You set yourself up to make good, trustworthy, minimal friction, minimal drama choices in the future, whether you're going on a trip or you're going to work. I remember one client specifically, when we had first started working together, she had just gotten back from a trip with her family. And she didn't sign up to work together because of that experience. But she definitely started out our work being like, okay, let's put this on the agenda because I don't want to have that experience again. She had made herself responsible for way too much. She wasn't able to be present most of the time because she was constantly worrying about what was next or what else they could be doing. It was so stressful. Later on, during our work together, there came another opportunity for a trip. And lo and behold, she took all of her decision mastery tools, mindset, new habits, and was like, all right, here's the experience I'm going to have on this trip. And she had such a great time. She slacked me from her vacation when she was like on a beach. I just needed to come on Slack for this moment. I am not freaking out about anything. And this is such a gift to myself right now because I know my mind could be working a mile a minute on 1,000 different things right now. And it's not. And I was like, oh my gosh, this makes me so happy. So I want you to know these are changeable habits. And it just starts with a simple conversation. So reach out, fill out the inquiry form. We'll get the conversation started and see if we're a fit to work together. Who knows? It might just be the best gift you ever gave yourself. Thank you for listening to my stories today. I hope it was useful to find out how this former overthinker didn't overplan a trip and still enjoyed it. I have some fabulous London recommendations for anybody looking to give themselves some saved places on the Google Maps. I hope you have a fabulous weekend and I will see you next week. Hey, want to find out your decision style? Obviously, go take the decision style quiz. It's in the show notes and at kirstenparker.com/quiz. We all have our style when it comes to making decisions, but do you know how to use your default way of thinking to your advantage? Or do you mainly get stuck in the most annoying parts of overthinking and people pleasing? The decision style quiz has your answers, my friend. Take it right now at kirstenparker.com/quiz.